everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Vibrations of Truth. Wanted to start off with what's happening out in the cosmos. We mentioned this last week. September 7th was the lunar eclipse, which was helping to release things from the subconscious mind. Anything, new things could be surfacing for you to take a look at. And what's coming up on September 21st is a partial solar eclipse. And that's all about renewal, setting new intentions, and navigating that. So, this is eclipse season, which happens about every 6 months, where we see a solar and a lunar eclipse within about a 35-day time span. So, welcome. My name is Jen Smith. Michelle Bowen is my co host. So, welcome, Michelle. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm feeling great. Happy to be here and ready to discuss our topic of the week.
All right, very good. So, we have decided to talk about attitude, how our thoughts, feelings, and actions shape our reality. How do we navigate into the world and as we're going about through our day?
Right.
So, this is a topic that we've been talking about, Michelle and I, in the group sessions for almost 2 weeks now, right? So, Michelle, why don't you get us started? Like, what has come up for you? What topics would you like to expand on? What topics would you like to reiterate that may be able to help people?
Right.
Or what has come up that's helped you?
Okay. Yeah. So, a couple different things, actually. As you know, I went back to work. And so I am out in the world and having to engage with others and engage in potentially stressful situations and things of that nature that I wasn't doing while we were, initially learning. And so I get to put a lot into practice, which is actually kind of fun to see how you use your tools and really what comes of that and what the result is of that.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of people, have to be out amongst others and probably in today's world are bumping into some things that are not the most pleasant, probably sometimes, there are things going on in the world. So having to move through that. And I had an experience this week where I was in a social situation, went out for a light evening, was so excited to enjoy some music and a dinner and just relax. And, I just was so excited and ready to feel, happy and joyful in that situation.
Mhm.
And there was a circumstance that happened in the world that had upset quite a few people. I'm not going to get into all the details of it. I'm sure anybody who watches the news knows that. I didn't know enough about it because I'm trying to stay out of those things, right? Choosing that also impacts your attitude. So I was observing, I guess, more from a neutral standpoint, the way that people were responding and reacting, the things they were taking on. And it really just kind of helped me, I think, process some things that I've been dealing with. So one, remaining neutral. You gave us the tool or strategy to use, saying that's interesting in a topic, if it's a negative topic or something's coming up that you really don't want to be pulled into and don't want to dabble in. And it's like, that's interesting, and trying to shift that into something more positive. Was able to utilize that some. And then just really trying to disengage my feelings and emotions and not get caught up in all of the emotion and feeling and belief systems that were right there in front of me. And that is hard. I have to
It's
say,
really interesting, yeah.
it is
Yeah, it's
hard
good
to,
practice.
yeah, honestly, I was thankful for the practice. I felt like this time I was more, it was easier for me to talk myself through that and just say, I'm just going to remain neutral. I'm just going to stay in my presence, present, and I'm going to be centered, and I'm going to just kind of observe the things that are happening, hold space for those people, but not take on that stuff. And that is something that's really been a challenge for me a lot of my life, is that I get caught up and I feel all of the emotions and I feel all of the angst and everything. And I'm a people person and I care and I'm compassionate. So it's easy to get swept up in those things. And I did not allow myself to do that this time, which was nice. And then the second thought, so I could still feel joy, right? I could separate myself from those things and still carry on my night and have that joyful feeling that I was looking forward to. It didn't take it away from me, right? Or I didn't allow it to go away. So that I just went, I'm just acknowledging that remaining neutral is
That's good.
not the easiest thing to do. That was the first thing. That was the people thing that I was that I experienced this week. So do you have anything to say maybe about that? Or
Yeah, I do. One is, the best you had talked about, you got to practice. You get to put the tools in action that we're actually learning. And that's where the most learning comes into play. Is actually going through with action, right? You can study this material and you can know it, but the biggest gap is actually doing it. And some people may be stuck because they just know the steps, but they're not moving forward with putting it into action. So I love that you're going out there, you're putting it into action. The thing about watching the news is so interesting to me, because if people realize that we create our reality based on our thoughts, it's like our collective consciousness, the collective, is creating things based off of what they're watching in the news, whenever it doesn't have to affect our lives. So it's like perpetuating that creation. And that's why I think it's important for people to really understand who we are, spiritual beings, and to be able to change the world collectively, to recreate the world collectively, because we can do it individually. And what you mentioned is boundaries, right? We have to have boundaries. So you're out in the evening time, you're wanting to have a good time. These things come up because there's a lot of people watching the news, right? I don't even know what the situation is actually. But it's okay to become aware of what's going out in the world. It's just you don't want to get emotionally involved with it, because that's whenever that starts to go into the subconscious. That's whenever you get emotionally involved and things start to create. So I loved what you were saying, just to stay neutral. And it does take a really strong mindset to be able to do that over and over. And I think that's why boundaries are important for people. There's obviously, some friendships and relationships that you want to keep. And our goal is not to, make other people think differently. We want to, of course, allow them to know that this is available and they have the choice to think however they want to. But then it comes back to us. The only thing we can do is staying neutral in those situations. And what you did was perfect. I mean, you just say, that's interesting. You don't get emotionally involved with it. You change the subject, because we know that that sort of negativity, it might be true in their world, it might be true what they're saying, but it doesn't do any good for anyone to talk about it, right? It doesn't do any good to talk about it. So, yeah, I think what you did was excellent. Now, to be able to do that all day long with people would be pretty challenging, right?
Yes.
So that's where boundaries come into place, and you choose where you want to put your boundaries at, because wouldn't it be wonderful to go out and be with people who are talking positive things and creating positivity in your life, where you wouldn't have to be on guard to be in a neutral position? But the neutrality is going to be there for a while, and that's also part of our collective mission, is just to remain neutral in those situations.
Yeah, I'm just thinking too, just to your point, it really does matter who you surround yourself with. It's so important that you are surrounding yourself with people that you align with, and that will uplift you. And I'm not saying that, the circumstances happen in life and sad things happen and, things happen. Um, I'm not trying to promote, not discussing things or not supporting people or anything like that. I just think there's a difference between doing that, and I think you can do that with a boundary. I think you can do that without it having to take over all of your emotions and your beliefs and creating
Yeah.
some kind of a chaos in your life. And I have really struggled with that most of my life. And so um, I'm grateful for the knowledge and the awareness now that I have and the tools that I have
Mhm.
to put that in practice. And so also we're choosing our attitude. We're also choosing who we're around. We're choosing our environment. We're choosing what we want
Yeah.
to engage in, for the most part, right?
Yeah,
Um,
so I would like to say one thing about something you just said
okay.
about supporting people because, and just to give a little just to reword it a little bit differently,
Okay.
so it makes sense to everyone, is yes, it's okay, it's great. Most of our service work is supporting people in somehow, right? Some way, somehow. But I think the key is to talk about the solutions.
Yes.
If you're talking about solutions, that's perfectly okay. This came up. Now, what's the solution to it? But whenever we're sitting around and talking about the problems and our opinions, that's not really moving anything forward in a good light. Like, okay, what's come up, what's surfaced in your life? Okay, what's the solution for that? So
Yeah.
really focusing on solutions, no matter what you're doing, whether it's just something that comes up in your family, if it's something out socially, if it's even, from a macro level, socially or micro, what's the solution to this? We don't have to know everything about the problem and everything about everybody's opinion, right?
Right.
Because that's not moving the needle in the good energy direction.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. I
Mhm.
I feel that way. I feel like I try to stay solution oriented, right? I'm a
Mhm.
problem solver anyway. So like I'm not trying to fix anybody's problems. Let me just say that. But I do like the thought of going at things and how am I going to, if it's not the way that I want it to be, how am I going to change it so that it
Mhm.
can be? And I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on that for the most
You know,
part.
what we just talked about, one of the important things is that our words and what we're talking about is actually images that come to the screen of our mind. So think about the images that you're projecting all through the cosmos about what you want. I'm not saying you, Michelle. I'm saying
Yeah.
you in general, like what people want. If you're talking about the problems, those are the images that are flashing through your mind.
Yeah.
So that's another good tool to use is what images are you creating in your mind? If you're talking about solutions, well, now you're seeing images of things being okay. This is a solution. This is how we can move forward. And I like that. I like thinking of it in that way too, because I think that may help people. People have to hear this different ways to really get it to stick.
Right.
Um, but think of it in that way too, because our imagination is creating all the time. So what are we saying and what are we talking about? Because our words create the images,
Right.
right?
Right. Words. Words are so, I mean, I guess I think words are important, but there's a whole other level of understanding of that right
Mhm.
now, for me. Just knowing who we are, how that creates your world, what that is all about. And yeah, it's so much more, it's so much deeper, I think, than I ever knew. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. Yeah. I was just thinking another thing as far as things that I've bumped into this week, that I was able to practice. And which, you know what, I like that. So I'm all right with that because that's just life. That's
Mhm.
now my new world. Right. So we had talked at some point when we were reading this week in one of our readings about the sense of urgency and what that means. Um, and that means getting, what does it say? Getting a lot done in a short period of time in a calm and confident manner. And I have to tell you, when I hear the word urgency or sense of urgency, it does not. has never meant that it's different now, but it has never meant that to me. It has always felt very chaotic and felt like a crisis. And that's how I attacked it. And you're coming in and you're rushing and your energy's off and you're all the things. And that's your end result. And so I feel like the sense of urgency, putting into practice and knowing that it really is doing it in a present, calm, confident manner, and really how that expands your energy and that opens things up and it helps you become calmer and just kind of more in a flow. I feel like time shifts for you, and it seems as though you accomplish the things that you can accomplish without feeling out of control. And that's new. That's a whole new paradigm for me as well, and one that I've greatly needed, because that approach, my approach, has just been push, push, push. We've talked about that, and not
no pushing,
no pushing. And I've always come at my tasks and things that felt urgent with that energy, and it makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, and the reason is because we can tap into our intuition. We can tap into this universal mind, this all-knowing power, but we can't do it if we're in a sense of urgency that's chaotic, because then that can't flow through to us. So it's really important to work in energy segments, like what are you working on, and to approach that with the calmness of mind. And I forget what you said. The urgency was
confident. Yeah,
calm and confident. Yeah, that's good. And to approach it in that way, and everything just flows through so much easier. Whenever you talk about the sense of urgency, and you said that doesn't sound good, does it? Because we are used to urgency being chaotic. It's got to be done now, especially whenever for me, like working in the corporate world, urgency, it's got to get done now. But it's like, who's it urgent for? It wasn't an urgency for me.
Right.
It could be for, and what I come to find out is a lot of times those things are not urgent, right? Like if I were to look at everything, like what's the sense of urgency? Now, because we can flow and we can choose the things we want to do, urgency would be to me like maybe there's a project I want to be involved in, and maybe that has timelines. Well, then you can kind of plan, or the sense of urgency of working on one piece at a time. And we actually experienced this over the last 2 or 3 weeks, where it wasn't urgent, like it has to be done right now, but we did have a timeline that we had to meet, but we had plenty of time to say, okay, when do I want to work on this piece of the project? When am I feeling inspired to do it? And we tried to work in a more flow situation. Do you want to talk about that? I want to know what your experience was with working in that way.
Yes, because it was different for me. It allowed me to practice these skills, I think, a lot. I think Jennifer and I were working on a project. We have a wellness fair coming up that we're going to be at on Saturday. And there were quite a few things that needed to get done to put things together, products and signage and all kinds of things like that. And so we kind of divided up our task, who was going to do what kind of thing. We had, I don't know, I feel like we've had a month, a little over a month maybe to do that.
Yeah, and I think even dividing tasks whenever you're working with the team, 2 or more people, is to go through, okay, and brainstorm what needs to be done, and then try to work amongst one another to say, okay, what do I want to do? What am I going to feel comfortable doing? What's going to fuel me, right? So that's kind of what we did. We divided them out in that way. Like, what can we do? What would we enjoy doing? So
yeah,
okay. I think that's important for people.
No, that's perfect. Thank you for jumping in for that. And just my goal really honestly was because I was excited to work with you. I was excited about the things that we were putting together and what we would have for other people that we could, attract to us, and who, we were just very excited about all the projects, or all the pieces to this project. And so for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to come at it having all my other obstacles that I was dealing with. I'm going to come at that when I feel that burst of energy, and I'm going to go with that. And I feel like that I was able to ebb and flow through that energy. I had so much joy about doing it, because it was something that I enjoy, that I love. I love you. I love what we're doing, the message that we're putting out, and the things that we're providing. And I just was so happy to be able to be a part of that. And so I just chose to kind of flow with wherever I was energy level wise, because I've been struggling with those things. So it's been good for me. It's been a learning experience. I had to learn new things while I was doing that too. So, those are things that I had to kind of just remain calm about, neutral about, and just trust that things were going to turn out the way that they needed to be turning out. So
as you're approaching learning new things, because there's a lot of technology and different things that we may have to learn whenever we're moving towards a project or a goal, or something that we believe in, and sometimes learning those new things is it's not always like an inspirational, like, oh, I can't wait to learn this, right? But how go through that process, because sometimes I see people don't learn the tools they need because they don't want to do that. But to me, I always look at, like, what's the end result? And is that big enough for me to learn some of these things?
Yeah.
What was your experience with learning some of the new things?
Okay. So there was some technology. The technology piece was hard because part of the things that were going on medically with me was vision and not looking at a screen for long periods of time. So I really didn't anticipate that being as big of an issue as it was, honestly. But I thought I didn't know how to do I didn't know how to work this particular program, but I was dabbling a whole lot. It takes a lot of time to learn that. But at the same time, I was like, felt playful to me a lot of the time. Like, what can I do? How's this going to turn out? I think that my biggest challenge was setting limits on like how much time I gave to a certain thing. Like if it wasn't clicking, then it's okay to move on to something else or whatever and shift. And I think that was probably
that's important, because if you're working towards something, if we're doing anything in life really, and it starts to get to be like a little frustrating or it's just not clicking, is to walk away a little, walk away for a while and then come back in a higher vibration, because you'll see different things, right? Did you experience that? We never really talked about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
Good.
Yes, but it's crazy too how much time gets away from you. You know what I mean? When you're in that flow and in that vibe. So yeah, I had spurts of that. But it was a lot of the learning and stuff too. So I think I probably could have, now that I'm learning and I know more, I think, moving forward, they won't be as challenging, but the learning, the not knowing what I didn't know, and then trying to create something and being so excited and wanting it just right and wanting it just to look a certain way and, all of that kind of thing. I think all of that combined, it didn't feel challenging in the moment, but reflecting back on it, I just feel like that was probably, not as smooth as I would have wanted it to be. But at the same time, I'm still moving forward and trying to make it all happen. And
well, I mean, the next time you approach a project of anything you want to do, now you have this new tool that you can use, and you'll be able to create a lot more. Like you've got the learning curve under your belt and you're ready to go. So I love looking at things like that whenever I'm learning new things, is just trying to be patient going through it. Because once you get it, once you understand these new things, and it's, then it's not so bad. So I'm excited about Saturday.
I am too. We hope to see a lot of folks there. That's what we're anticipating. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else with attitude, thoughts, feelings, actions? Any
I
last
do have
words?
one thing because I remember you saying we're fine tuning. That was a
Oh,
phrase
yeah.
that I hung on to. Have grace for yourself. Feel like you're fine tuning all of these things, and it's not going to always be perfect. So I think that's it. You can have judgments about things, or things will come up, and you can just walk through them with the tools that you have, and it is okay that happens.
Mhm.
So and don't think there's something wrong with you. If those things come up in your mind, judgments or otherwise, if those things come up in your mind initially, you do have the tools, or I have the tools, to move through them and stay on track.
Yeah. Fine tuning. That's great. I always
Mhm.
say fine tuning, or we're refining, right? Because growth is essential for everyone. I mean, if you're not growing, then you're disintegrating, and we want to keep growing and pulling the essence of who we are to the surface over and over. So expanding further. So fine tuning is always on the horizon. And that's why you walk through it with grace. I mean, look how far I just go, wow, look how far we've come in just a short amount of time.
Yeah,
You know,
life change. It's been
it's
life
been
changing.
amazing.
It really, really has been life changing. It's shifted a lot for me, and I just see good things ahead. And not that I didn't before. It's just a completely different way to look at things, and a
Yeah.
completely different way to move. And
Mhm.
yeah, it feels right.
Feels light,
That
flow and
too.
ease.
Yes.
All the inner work, all the inner work pays off. So, all right, well, very good. I will see you on Saturday. Thanks for everyone who's joined us this morning, and we will be back with you next Friday for another episode.
All right. Take care.